Hey everyone, I'm Mind, and this is set number 72152, Pikachu and Poké Ball from the LEGO Pokemon theme. This set contains 2,050 pieces and will retail for $199.99 in the US when it officially releases on February 27th, 2026. This set was gifted to me early for review by the LEGO Group through the LEGO Ambassador Network, but all opinions expressed in this video are entirely my own. If you missed it, I've been doing early reviews of every single LEGO Pokemon set. I've got reviews of Eevee and the starters up on the channel right now, and I'll be covering the gift with purchase and VIP rewards very soon. So make sure to let me know in the comments which set you want to see an early review of next, and if you enjoy this kind of content and you want to see more, liking the video and subscribing to the channel does a ton to help support me and the channel, and it also helps YouTube to show you my videos more often. So thank you all very much for your support, and now let's get into the review. So, here is the build of the Pikachu set, of course Pikachu himself, and while I am a huge Pokemon fan and I'm very excited that LEGO Pokemon is here, this is definitely the LEGO Pokemon set that I feel like is the weakest, and that's for a couple of reasons. One, just like with the starters, I feel like this set's too big, and I honestly think that's a bigger issue with this set than it even is with that one. Because in that set, I felt like they tried to go too big of a scale where they just didn't have the pieces to make up the shapes they needed. A lot of their curved pieces and detailing pieces were just too small, that when you had them all stacked together it looked a little bit messy. It wasn't a huge deal on that one, I still really like that set, but yeah, I think this is a much bigger example of that. Part of that is just that Pikachu is a smaller Pokemon than the Kanto starters, so him being the same scale is upscaling him significantly more than those ones. But beyond that, I think some of the way the shaping is done is a little bit weird. I think the base is an odd choice, but there's also some parts about this set that I really like that I honestly wasn't expecting to. So let me move the camera up a little bit closer to the build so we can go through it all. We'll start at Pikachu's face, because I feel like that's where a lot of people's criticisms lie, and I think I'm in a very similar camp here. First though, the ears on the top, I mean, I think they're decent. I feel like they're maybe a bit too rectangular, they should have more of a point at the end, and they should also be a bit more rounded at the bottom. Pikachu doesn't have super round ears, but they're not perfectly straight like this. And while I think the idea of the ball joint's really cool, I wish it was inset a little bit more on the head and you couldn't see like the ball socket coming out of it, because it almost makes these feel more like antennae than actual ears. Overall though, they're fine, they're far from my biggest critique in this set, but it is something definitely worth pointing out. The actual face though, there's a couple things going on here. First, we have like the elevation change between the forehead and the area around the eyes. And I get what they were going for here, but it makes Pikachu's head look a little jagged. It doesn't have that smooth shape that he should have. And again, I think part of that ties into the fact that this build is just too big. If it was smaller, they might have been able to find the exact angles that match these pieces. When you're this big though, these are like the biggest rounded pieces that LEGO makes. So you don't have those perfect parts to place underneath them to make that smooth transition. And then it creates this weird look where it almost looks like Pikachu's wearing a visor. Like this strip that contains his eyes feels like a completely separate part of the build from the rest of the face, and when you're creating an organic creature like this, that's not what you want to see. The eyes are very interesting too. I actually quite like how they were done. They're printed versions of like minifigure shield accessory pieces. That's not what I was expecting at all, but I actually think that's pretty cool. But I think it would probably be cooler on a build that's not Pikachu. Because here I think the eyes are a little bit too big for Pikachu and also a little too far up. And also the shield piece, while very thin, does make the eyes slightly three-dimensional rather than being inset inside the head. And I'm not expecting for it to be inset, but a printed piece I think would probably look better here than the three-dimensional eyes, especially with the two-dimensional mouth. It does feel like there's a somewhat weird juxtaposition where the mouth is fully printed but the eyes are not. The lower like jaw part of the face is a bit better than the rest, I think especially the cheeks. Still a little bit odd how like the nose and mouth protrude out like this, and again create this very weird like sudden elevation change. There's not a smooth transition from that part to the rest of the cheeks. But the cheeks themselves I do think have a pretty nice shape to them. And then of course Pikachu's got his red like electricity sacks on his cheeks. And again, just like the eyes, I think those are maybe a little bit too big, but similar to the ears, I think they're fine. It's far from my biggest critique of the build. The biggest thing really is like the forehead and the eyes. There's something that's so off about that. And when you're creating a creature, I think the face is the most important part. So when the face isn't perfect, it does hurt the rest of the build. The side of the head here I think actually looks pretty good. It's got a nice silhouette. It definitely looks like Pikachu from this angle. And of course it's the same on the other side. It is interesting to take a look at the studs that were left on the build, because that's very much a personal taste thing. I think the Pikachu would look better if these were smooth tiles instead of studs, but if you didn't have the studs it would feel a little less LEGO-like. So it seems like occasionally studs are left in on purpose to give that LEGO feel. On the head, personally, I think I would have preferred if these were tiles, because when everything else in the face is a little iffy anyway, adding in some bumps doesn't help. But like the few studs that you see on the body and the tail I think are actually really good, and I would not change those at all. And again, I think top of the head is pretty good. Like the shaping on all of this is really great. It's just the front of the face that's off. But like I said, I think the front of the face is the most important part, so if that's not perfect on your buildable creature, it does hurt the rest of the build. Another thing I don't love in this set is the way the head connects to the body. There's no posability on the head, but it does attach separately. But unfortunately, when you attach it, it leaves this little gap on the side as well as the back. And that's another thing where it would look so much better if they managed to fill that in. If there was no shadow in there and it was just fully yellow, it would help this build significantly, but yeah, as is, it makes Pikachu feel a bit more mechanical mechanical and less like an actual living creature, which is not what you want to see when you're building something like this. Pikachu's back, I think, actually looks really good. It's one of the best looking parts of the set. It's one of the first things you build, and when I was putting it together, I was like, oh, maybe this set is better in person than it looks on the box. And I will say, I do think I like this set better in person than I do on the box. Like, even the face, while I still have a lot of critiques of it, does look better than how it's photographed. But yeah, I was putting this together, and I'm like, oh, I'm actually really excited for the rest of the build, and then I built the face, and I was like, okay. But yeah, we've got some nice curves that create the shape of his back, and there is some elevation changes, but they're not nearly as dramatic as the ones on the face, where this just feels like a natural extension of the building bricks. I think it looks really good. We got the 2 stripes on Pikachu's back. Technically, they should be a bit more rounded off at the edges, but that feels more like Legofication to me. It does feel like a good translation of how you would turn Pikachu into a Lego model. Once you move past the gap in the face, I also think the sides are pretty good too. Obviously a little complex because you have to create that rounded shape around the back into the front, but I think they did a good job to combine all these slopes and wedges, and they made the thigh and leg area feel like a distinct part of the build while still being a part of Pikachu's body. It's actually a bit funny, there's no actual posability on the legs, right? These are stuck in place, but as you can see, there is a little bit of give on them because you do build them separately and attach them. So it almost feels like there was some posability built in here at some point, but then it was removed? I don't know. It is odd to me though that you can like pull on them and move them around a little bit, but they just fall back into place, instead of having like an actual hinge there. It is probably for the best that there's no posability, because with how rough other parts of this build look, I think it would look rougher if they had to incorporate a joint here, but it would have been interesting to see at the very least. Pikachu is symmetrical, so of course the other side of the body is built in the exact same way. We'll take a closer look at the front of Pikachu once I remove him from the stand, because that's probably easier than like trying to angle my camera up. But while he's here, we can take a look at his arms, and again, I think these are done pretty well. It uses some like newer curved slope pieces, which I don't know if I've ever seen before. I suspect they come from LEGO Speed Champions, because Speed Champions is always creating pieces like this. But this is good. The roundness captures that cartoony look of Pikachu's arms, and they are quite accurately pretty small here. The little like pyramid pieces make for nice fingers too, and I love how it looks when he poses them, so it actually looks like he's jumping out of the Pokeball. I think that was really well done. There is some exposed Technic on the side of the arm, and it is just yellow and black, which is not the worst colors to be exposed. We've seen like blues and greens in other sets before, so at least it's not that. But even still, the black is like not a color that should be here. I wish that was yellow. Because when you have exposed Technic like this that's not the correct colors, it makes the entire build feel more mechanical, and again, that with the gaps in the face, it does just damage the organic look of this creature that he's supposed to have. And when you compare this to the Eevee set, or even Charizard or Blastoise in the big set, they don't really have these issues. So it's a shame to see it here. Finally, before I remove Pikachu from the stand, here's a look at his tail. I think that lightning bolt shape is captured really well, of course, with the brown base at the bottom. This does connect on a ball joint, so you are actually able to articulate it. You can move up and down as well as swing it side to side. That's not from the ball joint, that's from this bar at the base. And that's definitely good to see. If you're going to have motion on this build, tail is probably #1 priority. That way, if you're displaying it from the front too, you can have the tail angled so you can see it from the sides. But yeah, I think the shaping is very effective, and I like the use of the studs for texturing. It helps to keep this feeling like LEGO while not being too messy. And there is a somewhat interesting customization option here. The very end of Pikachu's tail could be removed, and you can replace it with this alternate build that comes in the set, and that's to transform the male Pikachu into a female Pikachu instead, because female Pikachu have like these heart-shaped tails. Now, while I like that idea in theory, if I'm going to be super critical, this isn't the best way to do that. Technically, the heart should begin like all the way back here. It should be much more dramatic than this, but you know what? That feature is very much a bonus. I'm glad they attempted it at all. Personally, though, I prefer how male Pikachu looks. Ending off the lightning bolt as a lightning bolt instead of a heart just makes more sense to me, but if you prefer the other way, you do have that option. But now let me remove Pikachu from the display stand. There's this black rod that comes up to hold him in place, and he can just be slid off of that pretty easily, just like that. This is what remains, which we'll take a closer look at in just a moment, but here is how Pikachu looks standing on his own. He can stand up without any help, but it is quite easy for him to topple over, so they do actually include a second, much smaller display stand in the base of the big display stand, this piece right here that can be removed. When this is removed, it can be sort of folded up like this, and that'll help Pikachu to stand up on his own if you place it underneath where the original stand goes. I'm sorry to do this to you, Pikachu. This does not feel right. But there we go, just like that. The instructions also encourage you to modify Pikachu's tail if you have him displayed standing up rather than on the stand. You should remove this bottom 1x5 brown piece and move it up by 3, and then attach it back to the build like this, and that'll ensure that Pikachu's tail doesn't sag when he's standing up like this. It'll always stay upright instead. Anyway, with Pikachu removed and standing up now, let me move the arms out of the way so we can see the belly. And again, just like the back, I'm pretty happy with this. I think the legs tuck in here really nicely where they feel like a distinctly different part of the body, but there's not really like any weird gaps in here that feel inorganic. Obviously, you have have a bit of technique under the arm, but you're supposed to fold the arms down when you're posing him like this. I think that actually looks pretty good. At the top, maybe a little bit gappy, but of course you have to leave room for the arms to go back up. While Pikachu's legs can't move, his feet actually can. They're on ratchet joints, so they can spin a little bit if you want to move them side to side, but then you can also bend them back ever so slightly. And that's just to help out with the jumping pose when you have him actually on the stand. But yeah, when you have him standing up, those sort of tuck away underneath into the leg. Now, obviously, the biggest thing is when he's removed, his head is still looking up, so that's definitely very awkward. If you display the set on a low shelf, so he's always looking up at you, I guess that looks fine. But if you have him displayed closer to eye level, it's definitely a bit awkward. Because yeah, as I mentioned, the head cannot bend at all, which when he's in the jumping pose is not a big deal, but in this pose, I really wish you could turn this down so the face is facing forward. There is a new oddity that comes in though when you have him posed like this. There is a bit of movement in the head, but it's probably not movement that's intentional. You can bend the head back a little bit even further, and that just reveals an even bigger gap at Pikachu's neck. Now you can never have this permanently displayed like this because gravity will bring it back down, and that's even doubly so when you have him on the stand. But yeah, it's funny to me that there's a degree of movement in there, it's just in the wrong direction. Also, something I just noticed, a weird, part quality thing. This yellow piece right here seems to have a bit of green plastic in it, and it creates, this spot on Pikachu's face. Of course, if you guys get the set, it's probably not going to have that issue. But yeah, it seems like there was a production error on that part where a bit of a different color got inside. So that's a bit weird to see. Again, even standing up from the back, I do think Pikachu looks really good. This looks like when you're playing a Pokemon game and your Pokemon's sent out, and, your side of the field, you can only see its back. This would make me think the set's pretty much perfect. But from the front, I don't know, it's fine. Sometimes I look at this and I go, oh, Pikachu's definitely there. But the closer you look, the more you see things that are issues. So overall, I don't know. I don't hate this Pikachu build, and I honestly think I like it more than a lot of other people do, but there's definitely a lot of aspects of it that I wish had been done better. Anyway, I think that's about all I have to say for Pikachu, but now it's time to take a closer look at the display stand that he's on. Because this is another part of the set that I have very, mixed feelings on. I think the actual display stand does look really good. It's shaped like a giant lightning bolt, because of course Pikachu's an electric type, he's pretty much the electric type, and that lightning symbol is the same shape of his tail, so I think that's really cool to incorporate that in there and not just do a plain base. There's also a neat little reference here, the number 25 is built in studs. Cool to do that out of studs rather than having some color in here, and of course 25 is Pikachu's Pokédex number. And then the main action feature of this set is this Pokeball at the back, which is opening up and lightning's coming out of it, and it's supposed to look like Pikachu jumping out of the Pokeball. The Pokeball is also technically on the display stand, not a part of it, it just rests on top. And this is one part of the build that I think looks significantly better than pictures. When this set was officially revealed, I was like, how did they get the Pokeball wrong? Because from official pictures, yeah, it looked like the red was too small, the white was too big, and didn't seem like a Pokeball at all. But now having this in hand, I think it was just photographed weird. I don't think the black looked great against the black background, and that was probably part of it. Because this on its own, I think this is a phenomenal Pokeball. I love that you have a way to display it opened up. But just like with the extra heart pieces for Pikachu's tail, the Pokeball also comes with an extra piece, where you can remove this Technic part on the inside that holds it open, and replace it with a straight part, so that way you can display the Pokeball fully closed up instead. And I genuinely think that looks pretty great. Of course, it's not perfectly round, there is a bit of boxiness to it, but it's LEGO, you're gonna expect a bit of that, and that doesn't bother me nearly as much on something that's just supposed to be a machine, rather than something that's supposed to be an organic creature. But no, to me at least, this looks pretty close to exactly how a Pokeball is supposed to look. I think if they found a way to remove this upper white trim at the bottom and only have the black trim underneath the red part of the Pokeball, it would be perfect. But even with that, I think it's really, really close. And this is a good representation of a LEGO Pokeball. The little button at the front too is a printed piece, which is nice to see. In fact, every single graphic in this set's printed, so it does give that high quality feel. And then there is a little gap at the bottom to be able to hold this on the display stand. You can see it just rests on top of there at an angle, so when it's displayed opening up, it looks like this lightning's coming straight out of it. I do like these energy effect pieces. All of them actually come from Ninjago, which is quite funny. These are lightning pieces, these are icy blades, but they're all meant to be the light that comes out of the Pokeball when the Pokemon comes out. I do feel like this is a really cool way to bring some action into the build. And I like how when Pikachu's on the stand, some of the blue parts actually go over top of his body, to make it seem like a more active process of him actually jumping out. Here's a look at the stand from above so you can more properly see that lightning bolt shape. And I appreciate that the stand is both black and yellow instead of just being black. It makes it a bit more interesting to build. But overall with the stand, I feel very similar about it as I do with the stands in the starter set. Where yeah, it's well done, but did it need to be here? Probably not. Because the thing is, the stand is huge. It is a major part of this set, probably about a third of it. And while it is a nice way to display Pikachu and it does look really good, would I have preferred if this set was $60 cheaper and just didn't come with the stand? Absolutely. And honestly, I would have preferred if Pikachu was looking forward instead of looking out. If it was just Pikachu standing normally with a Pokeball next to him instead of having all of this, and it cost even $50 less than this set, I think that would have been preferable. Because while this is cool, I think it just jacks up the price too much. And this set's so expensive. $200 is a lot of money. You're not buying it for the stand, you're buying it for Pikachu. So I really don't feel like the stand should take up this much of it. And that's when we come to my overall thoughts of the set. Would I recommend it? Well, one thing I haven't touched on too much yet is the price, and again with the price, I feel very similar about this as I do to the starter set. Do I think there is $200 worth of bricks in this set? Probably, yeah. Pikachu and the stand and the Pokeball are a very big build when they all come together. It's 2,000 pieces individually as well, lots of very big parts in there, and all the pieces are as high quality as they need to be. Pikachu's eyes are printed, the mouth is printed, it's not like there's stickers there to save budget. I do feel like there is probably a $200 value in this set. It's not a great $200 value, don't get me wrong, there's definitely better price sets out there. But in terms of just like raw bricks, yeah, you probably get your money's worth in this set. But again, that's value. In terms of actual price, $200 is still ridiculous. Pikachu alone should not cost $200. I wish the build was smaller so it would cost less money. I wish the stand was smaller or wasn't included at all so it would cost less money. It really feels like they put as much in this set as possible to really justify that $200 price point. And I do think they met that value, but they didn't have to. They could have just made everything smaller and I probably would have been happier. And then yeah, in terms of the actual build, it's underwhelming. I don't think it's the worst thing ever. Like, there's certainly worse looking builds out there, and it is still recognizable as Pikachu, which is the most important thing. But of the 5 Pokemon that came out this wave, I think Pikachu is easily the weakest one. There's just too many parts of the face that seem a little bit off, and when you're building a creature, the face is the most important part to show its personality, and unfortunately I do feel like they missed here. There is still a lot of good aspects about this build, and I think with some customization it could be pretty strong. But yeah, at $200, you don't want to be doing all that. So would I recommend this set? Honestly, no, probably not. Listen, it's Pikachu. If LEGO's gonna have the Pokemon theme for years, they're almost definitely doing another Pikachu at some point. I'm sure we're getting another playscale one soon, but I wouldn't even be surprised if we get another buildable Pikachu at some point. Look at LEGO Star Wars. We've gotten like, what, 5 buildable Grogus? And Pikachu's way more iconic than Grogu is. So even if you want a big buildable Pikachu, if the price is daunting, if you're not someone who could just drop $200 for fun, then I would recommend wait a little bit. If you just want one buildable Pokemon, absolutely get Eevee. I'm so happy with that set. And even the starters, while I have a lot of critiques of that set, $650, which is way too much money, all 3 Pokemon in that set are done much better than this one, especially Blastoise and Charizard, and while I have a lot of critiques of Venusaur, even he is a huge step above Pikachu. So yeah, while I love LEGO Pokemon, I'm so excited to have this set in my collection. This is a set that I'd recommend you guys probably pass on, unless you're planning on really customizing it, or you just have that kind of money where $200 isn't a big deal. But of course, those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think of this set in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like on it, subscribe to my channel if you're new. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!